it's part of my daily prayers. Please, Lord, will you just put it into Saban's heart that he decides to walk away and retire? He's done enough. Dear Lord, please bless him the rest of his life. But can you just have him resign as the Alabama head football coach?
Flip through Ben's prayer journal. Day 26, please let Saban retire. Day 71, please let Saban retire.
It's time for the Brew and Shavers Sports Podcast. Coming at you every week to talk all the things that make us love sports. The games, the rivalries, and of course, the personalities.
The March. I almost said the March Madness. I'm going to go to the Walmart.
I like indefinite articles, okay?
Can we just start over?
Absolutely.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's Ben and Darren, the Brew and the Shavers, with you on the Brew and Shavers Sports Podcast. Thanks for joining us for another episode in this wild and wonderful, can't get enough of college football season. It's been fun so far, hasn't it, Darren?
It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And, you know, you and I are such fans of it. It's been a fantastic season, and you've really been some great games to enjoy. But, I mean, as long as it's going, there's some great games to enjoy. We're good. It's just exciting in and of itself to be back in this deep into our college football season.
We want to start off the show by veering from college football to professional football and pay homage to a true legend of the game. Dick Butkus passed away at the age of 80. Part of a fearsome Chicago Bears defense. When you saw number 51, you knew you were in trouble. Mm-hmm. Not only was he a two-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year, he was a five-time All-Pro, 8 straight Pro Bowls, I believe. He dominated. He was feared. He intimidated his opponents. Played at the University of Illinois. I believe they put a statue up of him.
I think that's right,
which is good, but. Just one of those all-time greats, Darren. There was a story, I think I saw it on one of the NFL films. Do you ever watch those NFL films?
Definitely.
And it was one of the defensive linemen for the Bears that played with Butkus. And this, to me, encapsulates who Butkus was. The lineman was in the process of making a tackle and bringing the guy down. And all of a sudden he hears from behind him, Butkus is yelling, "Hold him up! Hold him up! Hold him up!" That's Dick Butkus.
That is. You know, I don't think I realized until just all of the conversation, over the last couple of days after everyone talking about him after his passing. He never played in a playoff game during his entire career. Because those were some tough years for the Bears. Let me say this: I'm almost positive he never played in, but I know for sure he never won. I think he never played in a playoff game, but it may have been he never won a playoff game. Either way, you hate to see somebody that had that storied of a career, an individual career, not to be able to have those team accomplishments as well.
Yeah.
He definitely had an incredible career. But of course, now he also had a great TV career. How could you forget? He was the downstairs diner owner in My Two Dads, right? Everybody remembers that, right?
Mm-hmm.
No. Is that just me?
What they may not remember is he actually had a role in Gremlins too.
Now, that's a fun fact you should know that I bet a lot of people walk away going, "Really? I didn't know that," because you and I basically said, "Really?"
Exactly.
I didn't know that.
I love this quote from Dick Butkus. He said, "There's only one thing I've ever wanted to do: play pro football. Everyone seems made for something, and I've always felt that playing football was a thing I was supposed to do. I love the game." And he played like he loved the game, a great ambassador of the game. Dick Butkus will be missed.
Absolutely.
Well, let's go back to college football, where we've got good news out of North Carolina. Tez Walker was declared eligible by the NCAA, played his first game, 6 receptions. Now, Darren, in a previous episode, you really went after the NCAA for their treatment of Tez Walker. Do you feel a little vindicated now? What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, obviously you feel vindicated for him, but at the same time, it's still a joke that it took this long. And then the NCAA says that it took this long because there was some undiscovered evidence or undisclosed evidence from North Carolina, and so now that they have that, they all of a sudden can declare him eligible. You talking about covering up for yourself? It's still, the NCAA still looks like a joke, and you still hate it for this young man that he missed the time that he did. But it's awesome that it happened, and he was able to play this past Saturday, and will be able to finish the season.
And of course, the NCAA had to get its digs in, claiming that North Carolina had not revealed pertinent information.
Absolutely.
We're just glad Tez Walker is back on the field. It's good to see.
That's what matters.
That got resolved.
Yep.
Speaking of being on the field, Darren, we got big news tonight, Tuesday. We have football games.
That's a beautiful thing.
Tech in Middle Tennessee, Liberty and Jacksonville State, Coastal Carolina and Appalachian State. And then games on Wednesday. And how about this intriguing matchup on Thursday? We used to cover the Big 12, but this one caught my eye. West Virginia is going to Houston.
That'll be interesting. Yep.
That might be worth tuning in for.
I tell you, the exciting thing about those games that you just read off, every night, even though they might not be, headliner top 25 games, there are some very intriguing matchups that should be some good quality football. I think the Louisiana Tech MTSU game should be a good game to watch. It should be a fun game to watch. Neither team's having the season that they want to, but it still should be a good game to watch. And there seems to be one of those every single night, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be like this, I believe, till Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's
just about every night. Is there a professional or a college game? So,
yeah,
if you love football, this is your season.
This is, as we've often discussed, this is truly the most wonderful time of the year.
Nice. Well, let's get into our week 6 takeaways, surveying all the games this past week in the SEC and in other leagues as well. Darren, what's your number one takeaway from this past weekend?
I don't mean to pile on or to sound negative, but I think there's something glaringly obvious that has to be said. Big 12, I admire your efforts of what you're trying to do for your 2024 and your 2025 seasons by bringing in, or 23 and 24 seasons by bringing in so many people, or so many new teams. But man, this past Saturday, you were absolutely showcased by an incredible football game by two teams that one of them's probably going to win your conference, and they're on the way out the door. I hate that for you, Big 12. I really do. I'm very happy for the SEC, but I hate it for you, Big 12, because truthfully, if you fast forward a year and everything plays out exactly the way it has so far in this season, this game is an SEC game this week, and the only ranked team in the Big 12 is Utah, and their game would be lackluster at best if things were kind of going the way they are this year with the opponents they're playing. It would be a little bit different because they'd be playing Big 12 opponents, but still, a number 16 Utah versus an Oklahoma State or something, it's just not going to have the same ring as the Red River rivalry and what was showcased this past weekend. I'm very excited for the SEC, but man, I hate it for the Big 12. It just really showed how different things are going to look and the hit that league really is taking by losing these two teams next year.
They need to somehow get with Colorado officials and try to get Dion locked into a long term, because Colorado
can we help with that?
A little bit of shot in the arm, but other than that, I read today, Darren, that they're making an effort to sign Gonzaga. Of course, that doesn't do anything for you football wise, but basketball wise,
yeah.
But great takeaway, Darren.
that's an interesting move in and of itself. We'll talk about that during the offseason when it's not football season.
That's a great
What's your
takeaway.
first takeaway, Ben?
My first one is SEC quarterback play. The media is inundating us with Pac-12 quarterbacks, Pac-12 quarterbacks. But let's back up a little bit and let's really look at the statistics here. Out of the top 10 quarterbacks in terms of passing yards in the country, there are 4 SEC quarterbacks. That's more than any other conference, including the Pac-12. Leading that group is Jaden Daniels with 1,969 yards. Now, some people are saying, "Oh, LSU, they've lost 2 games. If they lose another game, that's going to take Jaden Daniels. That defense is going to take him out of the Heisman." But let's back up because there's a quarterback out at USC who won the Heisman last year, and his team had 3 losses. So Jaden Daniels has got to be in the consideration for one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Carson Beck from Georgia is number 4. 4th ranked overall. Jaden Daniels, number 3. Carson Beck, number 4. Brady Cook coming in at 5th from Missouri. And Dylan Gabriel, who we're already claiming in the SEC from Oklahoma, coming in 6th. So 4 SEC quarterbacks in the top 10. Let's give them some props.
Agree completely. That's a great take.
How about your number 2, Darren?
Well, speaking of Dylan Gabriel, it was just a couple of weeks ago that my belief was firm that Oklahoma had the potential to be giant killers. I would like to take a moment and change just a small part of that sentence. Oklahoma Sooners are giant killers because here's the thing. Not only did they obviously beat Texas, who's the number 3 ranked team in the country, they did it in a way that showed that they maintained composure and could do what they needed to do, even in the most stressful of situations. I mean, any other team, many other teams, even in that circumstance with a good team, would have fallen to the pressure and not been able to complete what they did and do what they did in the last little bit of that game. They are showing that they have composure. They are showing that they have the strength on both sides of the ball. I mean, Dylan Gabriel has a 9.7 yards per attempt average in passing. So literally every time the ball leaves his hand, it's going for a first down. That's his average per attempt. Rushing, they have 6.7, or rather yards per play. They have 6.7 yards per play. And their opponents are only allowing their opponents less than 5 yards per play. So they're getting it done on both sides of the ball. They really will step up and be giant killers. Most likely, if they have to face in the Big 12 championship, it's Texas versus Oklahoma again. If they pull that off, you're talking about being a giant killer. That is fee, fi, fo, fum level stuff. I mean, they are climbing the beanstalk and chopping it down in a big way. But for right now, even without looking ahead to that potential rematch for today, they are giant killers that didn't luck into a win, that did what they needed to do to take care of a win. It was an impressive showing for Oklahoma.
They're looking like a playoff team.
Yep. Agree completely.
And I'm trying to remember, Darren, who was their quarterback before, or their not their quarterback, their head coach before, who was their head coach before Brent Venables? You know, I remember Bob Stoops.
Yeah.
I remember Barry Switzer. It seems like there was someone else in there, but I can't remember who it was.
He kept screaming, please don't make me play them, and running west. What was his name?
But I'll tell you something. I think we're seeing that they are going to be better without him.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Most people would not have thought of.
Mm-hmm. And I tell you another thing, you believe in Brent Venables and his ability to coach a team because of the turnaround that they've had this year. Last year obviously wasn't what anybody wanted or expected, but you can definitely see where they're starting to right the ship and things are getting better this year. But not only that, you can see what he brings to the table as a defensive coordinator without any form of hesitation or doubt when you look at what Clemson has looked like since he left town.
Yeah.
He's got credentials all over the place right now that shows he knows what he's doing. For sure.
He does. He does.
Yep.
Well, my second takeaway is SEC wide receiver play. Again, in the top 10 receivers in the country in terms of receiving yardage, there are 4 SEC receivers. Luther Burden from Missouri, 793 yards. Malik Neighbors from LSU, 771 yards. Xavier Legette from South Carolina, 606 yards. And Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU, 603 yards. Again, the quarterbacks in the SEC, the wide receivers in the SEC, it's time to pay attention to what's happening. And I don't know. I think, is it anti-SEC bias from people in the media? I don't know. I watch every week and listen to these guys pick games, and I see them pick against SEC teams, and they want to talk about USC. They want to talk about Washington. But when you look at the statistics, Darren, the quarterback play and the wide receiver play, there's no conference better than the SEC.
And the amazing thing is, and I won't claim the point is my own, but it's the point you made earlier when talking about the quarterbacks. When you point to the irrefutable evidence of what the quarterbacks in the SEC are doing compared to the rest of the country and the wide receivers, which, by the way, great points on your part on both of these. But when you point to that irrefutable evidence, then you start to hear excuses about why, well, this team's got this many losses and this team didn't do this and this team hasn't done this. And it's like you can point to things that have went on the West Coast where all of those same things happened, but it didn't affect anything that we're talking about. So it really is interesting how that happens. But those are both great takes with the quarterbacks and the wide receivers.
Let's move on to your third takeaway for the week, Darren. What is it?
Okay, I think this is the last time I can reference this phrase strictly because I think it has been corrected. We have talked a couple of different times, or I have talked a couple of different times about the upside down and how we now in the SEC is now firmly planted in Hawkins, Indiana, and we live in the upside down because of the way the first 5 weeks went. But I believe the character's name is 11, has come out of the house and did her very, very loud scream, ran off the Demogorgon, and the upside down is now right side up. Because we are now things may change. There's always that possibility, especially in the SEC. Things may change, but for now, it looks like the number one spot in the SEC West is Alabama. The number one spot in the SEC East is Georgia, and it looks like they are on a collision course headed to Atlanta. Things can still change, but that's where we are. So as opposed to a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Georgia and Kentucky and all this different, the season ends today. Looks like we would be more along the lines of a Georgia, Alabama, even if it ends up being a Georgia, LSU. That doesn't catch anybody off guard. The upside down is now right side up, and we're looking at things the way we're accustomed to looking at them. So I think we finally come out of the upside down, at least for today.
Well played, and that's a great segue to my third takeaway, and that is rumors of Alabama's death were premature. Saban's still doing it. He's still getting wins. Jalen Milroe had his best game statistically all year in a hostile environment at Kyle Field, and we blinked, and suddenly Alabama is the front runner in the SEC West.
Yep.
They're not going anywhere.
And it makes you feel kind of silly if you've ever had a conversation about the fact they might be when this kind of stuff happens.
And I have, and most of my conversations are wishful thinking. Saban's lost it. Alabama's not as tough. Please let it be so. Let it be so. It's part of my daily prayers. Please, Lord. Will you just put it into Saban's heart that he decides to walk away and retire? He's done enough. Dear Lord, please bless him the rest of his life. But can you just have him resign as the Alabama head football coach?
Flip through Ben's prayer journal. Day 26. Please let Saban retire. Day 71. Please let Saban retire.
Well, let's move on to this week in sports history.
October 13th, 1853, Boston Corners, New York. Champion prizefighter Yankee Sullivan is being challenged for his title by John Morrissey. Morrissey literally threw his hat in the ring to begin the fight. Morrissey was younger and bigger than Sullivan, but Sullivan had a storied history of winning fights. The two were rivals in every way, in the ring, in the community, and in the political arena. On this day, Morrissey held the advantage from the very beginning. It was obvious who would be the winner. In the 37th round, Sullivan lifted Morrissey and attempted to throw him out of the ring. However, Morrissey supporters would not have it. They crowded the side of the ring and refused to let Morrissey be tossed over the ropes. The pro-Morrissey crowd had been effective in taunting Sullivan for the majority of the bout, and this was the final straw. Sullivan left the ring and began swinging at people in the crowd. The fight ended because Sullivan left the ring and Morrissey was awarded the title.
Oh, thank you.
Moving on to our CBS Sports Pickem, and Darren, I believe we have a new front runner.
That is correct. We have a front runner in sole possession of first place by 1 point. And you and I in the past have maligned the fact that we've ended up near the bottom. Well, even though our names are at the bottom of this list, this is just the top three. We're not at the bottom. There are more than three people playing, so we're not at the bottom. We're just at the bottom of the top three, which, you know what? I'll take it. I'm not going to fuss about that. I'm all in on that. But Zach, who is a strong contender in any of our pick'em games that we play year in and year out, whether it be basketball or football, and he's also really, really good at fantasy football. He regularly wins in fantasy football as well. But he is now in sole possession of first place by 1 point. Paul, who had his, let's call it, meteoric rise to the top with his perfect game a couple of weeks ago where he called every game correctly, is in second. And then you and I are hanging out in close but no cigar third. But we're tied. I guess we're fighting over the cigar at this point. Is that one?
There's nothing to fight over, Darren. If you're not first, you're last.
That's right. Second place is first loser. Is that one?
Is that the first Ricky Bobby reference we've had on this show?
I think it may be, honestly.
How did we go this long without a single Ricky Bobby reference?
It's a very, very insulting to the shake and bake. I can tell you that. I don't know how we did that.
Suddenly our credibility is in question.
It really is.
But congratulations to Zach. His
Yes.
team, the OU Sooners, won a huge game this weekend, and he's in first place on the Bruin Shavers CBS Sports Pick'em. If you would like
pretty good weekend.
if you'd like to dethrone Zach, then join in the competition. Even if you haven't done it yet, you can still sign up and be a part of it this week. All you got to do is log into CBS Sports Pick'em, look for Bruin Shavers, and our password we make available. It's I forgot what it is. What is it, like 1, 2, 3 A B C D E F G H I J K? I don't know. It's something like that.
There's an X and an ampersand in there. It's Pick'em 1, 2, 3. Pick'em 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't. It'll show up at the end. I can't remember either. I think it's Pick'em 1, 2, 3 exclamation point. I think
it will be there for you to sign up. It's
Yes.
very easy.
Yes.
And we hope that you'll join in the fun. So let's go to our standings between Darren and I. And Darren, you still got a lead.
It's still a win. I think was that technically be a half game lead if we were doing it like a baseball, because you have one more win, but I don't know how that works. Anyway, I'm still technically in the lead, but not by much.
So years ago, the first year I ever played fantasy football, this was way, way back. And we didn't use the automatic, the Yahoo or whoever you're using. They tabulate all the stats for you. Well, we designated a person to tabulate all the stats for that year. He ended up winning. Well, the next year we went to one of the ones that tabulates everything automatically. He never won again. Now,
It's
am I
funny how that
drawing a
worked.
parallel between him and you, Darren? I wouldn't go that far, but I'm just throwing it out there to think about.
All of our records are on CBS Sports Pickem. Just saying, there we are using the automated. If it were my tabulation, not only would I lose, everyone would lose. That would be
Woo!
that
Darren,
would not go well.
You're starting to backtrack and sweat like a politician.
like I'm backtracking like Mario Cristobal trying to take a knee. Is that? Oh wait, no, never mind. It was too easy. It was deflection.
That is heaping it on. That's wow.
I couldn't help it.
He picked up the shovel and started throwing on the dirt.
Pretty much. I can't deny it. Well, speaking of shovels and dirt, all right, go ahead.
Well, let's go ahead and move to our picks for this week. The number 1 ranked Georgia Bulldogs are traveling to the construction zone, otherwise known as Vanderbilt's home football stadium, to face the Commodores, whose season has been somewhat disappointing. Darren, I'm going to go ahead because I know you've got a lot more emotionally invested in this. Georgia is my pick.
They will turn the construction zone into a destruction zone, and it'll be done. What was remember was it Georgia Tech versus Cumberland University, 299-0? That record might be in question this weekend. I'm just saying, Georgia wins and wins big. Yeah. Unfortunately, I wish I could say something different, but it's just the reality of where we are.
Yeah, I appreciate your honesty. The Arkansas Razorbacks, who are in turmoil with an offensive coordinator who is responding to critical emails that students send in. Sam Pittman, I think, is officially on the hot seat, at least from the discussions I've had with diehard Razorback fans who are incredibly upset right now. There's a chance that they can go into Tuscaloosa and pull out a very unlikely victory that things could turn around for them. But as we've already talked about, Saban seems to have his Crimson Tide going in a great direction. 11th ranked, a big win over A&M. Darren, I've got Alabama in this one. What about you?
Yeah, I agree completely. Anything that you may perceive as a strength that all could try to utilize and maybe exploit, it doesn't seem to be a weakness right now for Alabama. So there doesn't really seem to be any open doors. Hate it for Sam Pittman, but yeah, this is definitely an Alabama win.
The A&M Aggies, coming off of that loss to Alabama, are traveling to Knoxville to face the 19th ranked Tennessee Volunteers. So this is one of those games that you really have to step back and look at it. Well, who are you picking, Darren?
Well, Josh Heupel, in his time at Tennessee, is 2-0 coming out of bye weeks. So you would think that says this is a Tennessee win. However, take me out to the ball game says it's 1, 2, there we go, 3 strikes, you're out. I think this third time will not be 3 times the charm. It will be the third strike and go negative against him this time. I think A&M is going to show up to Knoxville ready to play. I think DJ Durkin can scheme in such a way, not necessarily as to confuse Joe Milton, because I think Joe Milton sees and diagnoses defenses really well, but I think he can scheme in such a way as to get pressure on Joe Milton, make him nervous in the pocket, which when that happens, the number one weakness of Joe Milton comes out, and you can have the potential to come out heavy, and that is overthrow. And even when he doesn't overthrow, it's a quick, 5 and in hitch, and he's throwing at the guy at 93 miles per hour, and it bounces off the guy's hands or his face mask or whatever, and it leads to a lot of incompletions. I think the A&M defense can cause that kind of ruckus in the backfield for Tennessee and in the pocket, disrupting the pocket for Joe Milton. And their offense has enough firepower. I think it makes me nervous with it being on the road, but I'm going to stick with it. I think this is an A&M upset over Tennessee. They win this game in Knoxville. Who do you take?
Darren, it's hard when we have long-held biases.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to see beyond that. It's kind of like whenever I listen to Greg McElroy or Roman Harper make picks, and they always pick against LSU.
Right.
Well, they played at Alabama. They hate LSU.
Right.
And
Right.
I know it's just part of the human condition. We struggle to see past our biases, some that have been taught to us since we were little children. And I wonder if you may be dealing with this right now, Darren. But I'm going to go with the Tennessee Volunteers. I think I'm a little concerned about the performance that I saw from Max Johnson against Alabama. They got after him. It was not his best day. Now maybe Petrino can get him going and get him playing better against Tennessee, but that's going to be Neyland Stadium is going to be
It's going to be rocking.
That's a tough place to play. I think you described it once as daunting.
Yes. You can't deny that. It definitely is. And I'll tell you this, I think you do make a valid point, even though obviously we see differently of who is going to have that better outcome. But I think the defense that can rattle the other team's QB leads their team to victory. Yeah. Whether that be Tennessee or A&M, like I said, we obviously see that differently. But I think we definitely see that similarity. That's who leads their team. Whoever can rattle the other team's quarterback puts their team on their back and takes them to the finish line.
Yeah. The Florida Gators are traveling to South Carolina to face Shane Beamer and the South Carolina Gamecocks. Interesting matchup here. Darren, I've talked about the job Shane Beamer is doing, and even though South Carolina is not what I would call in the upper tier of the SEC, I do think they have enough to win this game. It's going to be a home game. It's going to be rocking. Sandstorm's going to be everything's going to be there. So I'm going to go with South Carolina. How about you?
I agree completely. I think Florida has some potential. I think this would be a much scarier game if I'm a South Carolina fan and my team has to go to Gainesville. But I don't think this Florida team, Graham Mertz, particularly, even though he's got an incredible, 80% or something like that completion percentage, I don't think that dink and dunk stuff at a high completion rate will give you enough momentum in an environment like Columbia, South Carolina, to actually do some damage to this team. So I agree with you. It's a South Carolina win.
Yeah. The Auburn Tigers, led by new coach Hugh Freeze, are traveling to Baton Rouge for a Saturday night game in Death Valley against the 22nd ranked LSU Tigers. You're looking at this, LSU's defense is still pretty bad. They improved a little bit. I thought the defensive line did a little better, but the back end still has a ways to go. Can Auburn exploit that? When you look at this game, Darren, what do you think?
I think the answer is Auburn can't exploit anything. People get real excited about anything that Hugh Freeze does, but I'm blanking on the quarterback's name. Patrick Thorne for Auburn. He can't throw a forward pass. So, this is the best case scenario for LSU. Their secondary has had some issues, but I mean, the last game before the bye that people were so excited about for Auburn, I forget, can't recall off the top of my head who they played, but they had 59 yards passing. You cannot beat an LSU offense when that's all your offense can do. It doesn't matter to me how rough some of the outings for the LSU defense has been. You cannot beat this LSU team with that kind of offense. in Death Valley, this is a resounding victory. This takes away all the good vibes that the Auburn folks have been feeling coming off the last couple of weeks. I think this is going to be a little bit of a get-right game for LSU. I think their defense is able to do some things, and their offense is just dominant. How about you? How you see this one going?
I think the defense, if they continue to make positive steps, I see an LSU win here. If they don't, then LSU is going to have to score 60 points to win. Mm-hmm. Jaden Daniels is the real deal. If there were still any doubters out there, how he came back from that, what was a late hit in the end zone that wasn't called, and bruised his ribs. He came back in that game. If he doesn't come back in that game, LSU does not win against Missouri. An incredibly gutsy performance. He laid it all out on the line. I'm a big fan of Jaden Daniels and the job he's doing, and I'm going to stick with him, LSU, for the victory. The Missouri Tigers, one of my favorite teams, except when they're playing LSU, led by their coach, Eli Drinkwitz.
Nice. Well done.
I thought they played a great game against LSU. Yeah. I was very impressed with their team. They went up 22-7.
Yep.
Wow. Everything was working for them. I think they are a team to be reckoned with. They're traveling to the 24th ranked Kentucky Wildcats, who are back home in Lexington, nursing their wounds after completely being dismantled by the Georgia Bulldogs. 31-7 at halftime. There should be a mercy rule at that point. Just let them go home. It's over. I'm very concerned about Kentucky showing up in the big games. They're coming off a humiliating loss. Missouri's coming off of a hard-fought loss. Both of them have motivation here. Darren, I'm going to roll the dice and go with the Missouri Tigers.
Nice. That call makes sense because when you look at it quarterback to quarterback comparison, you have no choice but to go with Brady Cook. But I will play into my biases again here. Even though he isn't wearing black and gold this year, I think Ray Davis has the potential to change a game like this. Unfortunately, Devin Leary may have 87 yards passing, but if Ray Davis has the game like he had a couple of weeks ago and has 200 plus yards in the first half, that can change. If you keep Brady Cook off the field, you minimize what he can do to you. Now, that being said, all he has to do is find Luther Burden a couple of times, and that changes everything again. But, I'm going to give this Mark Stoops team credit for being able to find their fight and pull this off in Lexington. So I'm going to go with Kentucky on this one.
Nice. Ray Davis, an incredible running back. That's a great point, Darren.
There's our password.
Well, remember to join the Bruin Shaver Sports Pickem. Make your picks. Send us out of the top 3.
That's right.
And let us know that you know more about college football than we do.
That's right.
Go to CBS Sports College Football Pickem. Look for Bruin Shavers Pickem. Passwords Pickem 1234 ! And I believe it's time, Darren.
You're in 4 down territory.
Four down territory, where we make our sure thing pick of the week, our upset pick of the week, and our brown bag pick from last week. Darren, who is your sure thing pick of the week?
Well, I'm telling you that this might not be a pick you would expect me to make. Well, based on how I picked the game, maybe you do, but I'm going with Georgia. Clark Lee proved me wrong. That's all. And I don't think there's a way he can. This is just going to be, it's almost embarrassing that I would pick it as the sure thing because it is such a sure thing, but maybe just out of spite for how the season is going, I'm going with Georgia as my sure thing. How about you, Ben?
Yeah. Well, as I look at this schedule, I think the one I keep coming back with, I'm going to go with the Tennessee Volunteers and just listen and embrace it. This is Neyland Stadium coming to life. A big win over A&M Saturday.
You've never made me cheer harder for A&M. You've I got to tell you, man, they make me nervous, but I see your point.
Do you need a moment? Do you need a moment, Darren? Do you need to decompress?
Just to collect myself a little bit.
Did I just trigger you?
You did, because in a matter of a 35-second span, we went from me picking against Vanderbilt to you playing Rocky Top and picking Tennessee. It got difficult there for a minute.
Well, let's move on then.
Please.
How about your upset pick of the week?
I'm going to go the opposite of everything you just did. My upset pick of the week is A&M. So
Nice,
if you're going to pick a team to go in Knoxville and win at Neyland, you got to hang with them and make it your upset pick. So A&M it is. How about you? Who's your upset pick?
I'm sticking with the Missouri Tigers going into Lexington and coming out with a victory.
That's going to be a fun game to watch for both on both sides of that. It's going to be a fun game to watch.
How about your brown bag pick from last week?
I am going with SEC officiating, specifically in the Alabama A&M game. Let's see. I'm going to make sure I get the names right here. Chris Braswell blocks a field goal so cleanly that it looked like he caught it. You could see on further replay, watching it a few times, that it bounced off the ground and it just went back straight back into his hands. But it was still such a clean block, and he just takes off running. It is a beautiful return for a touchdown, scoop and score, whatever. Everything that could motivate a team and give a kid on a team a bright, shining moment happens, and then here comes a flag, because 15 yards behind the play, having no bearing whatsoever on the play. Let me again get the name right. Dallas Turner hits shoulder to shoulder with a guy, with an A&M player who, I guess, if he may have been another 8 or 10 inches more narrow, he could have found the guy's back. Outside of that, there's no way it was a blindside block. There's no way he hit the backside of his shoulder. Even if he did, it was a barely any contact. It is in no way what was in mind when those blocks were made illegal. It was an awful call, no matter which team you liked. It was an awful call. So brown bag to the SEC refs on that one. Horrible call.
Hey, we can't get fined for criticizing the officials, can we?
We are not in that pay bracket. No, we
have no budget for that, Darren.
We do not. That is very correct. They might find us in nuggets. We might be able to pull that off.
I mean, we're putting all of our money into these graphics. Come on, man.
Your helmet's lower this week, by the way. It's not consuming you.
I am beating back the helmet that's trying to slowly digest me. It's like that episode. You remember the episode of the X-Files where Mulder and Scully, and it's some sort of, what was it, a plant or something, or they were somewhere and they were slowly being digested. Yeah, that's what this helmet is.
But you're fighting back. You're not taking it. That's
right. Yep,
what's your brown bag pick?
I'm going to take it.
Oh, shoot.
My brown bag pick of the week, Mark Stoops. I apologize to you. I apologize to the Kentucky football team. And then you came out and traveled to Athens and didn't show up. I want to get behind you. I think you're a great coach. I think you're doing a good work in Kentucky. But at some point, you've got to take that next step if you want to compete with the big dogs. And at some point, you go in and lay some haymakers and knock out the champ.
Absolutely.
37 at halftime, that wasn't much of a fight. And so I'm sorry. I'm going to have to give my brown bag to Kentucky.
Very, very valid point.
Grieves me deeply.
Yes.
Let's move on to our post-game quote of the week, where we want to honor someone who was taken from us way too early. And that is the never replicated, completely unique personality of Mike Leach.
Weddings. I'm in the middle of planning one right now. Do you have any advice for me?
Who are you marrying?
His name is Trevor.
Okay, yeah, well, I'll have to just set up a meeting and I'll talk to him. Okay, so where's Trevor from?
He's from Florida.
What does Trevor do for a living?
He works in sports as well, covers football.
He does what?
He covers football as well.
Really? Well, I don't know. We'll keep a close eye on it, but whatever you and Trevor decide, I would kind of keep it on the down low, which you failed to do that. Trevor was probably planning to, but you didn't. So go ahead and don't say anything else about it, but as soon as the season's over, or even an off week, go elope. Trust me on that. Go elope. Because basically every female in the family is going to terrorize you guys until it's over. Once it's over, I mean, they'll be upset for a few days, but it'll be over. And then, you cruise along, have a happy marriage, have a happy life.
I'll pass along the message. Thanks, Coach. Congrats on the win.
Trevor, unless he's crazy, is totally on my side. And trust me on this. If Trevor doesn't have the sense to do that, tell him to call me, because, I mean, he needs to do trust. I've told all my kids, I'll give you $10,000 extra if you elope. So far, they haven't done it, but I would, too.
I'll have him call you for sure.
All right.
Thanks, Coach.
All right.
That's a much longer clip than we usually play. But the fact that, and I know we talked about that last year when we played this one, when we played the audio of this one, the fact that you can tell she's like, she's gotten what she's wanted. She asked him a question. She got a Mike Leach response, but she's also got TV time constraints that she has to deal with. So she's, all right, Coach, thank you. Thank you for your answer. Congratulations on the win. He's like, this guy better agree with me. If not, have him call me. And he just keeps rolling. Yeah. It is such vintage Mike Leach.
It is, and he is so missed. And I believe, Darren, that took place about a year from this week today.
Within a couple of days of being almost a year to the day. Yeah, it was very, very close. And that's why when we talked about it, we decided we wanted to play it, because it was such a great – it was everything that is a Mike Leach conversation in a 90-second window. It really, really was. Just, man, like you said, so very, very missed. Brought so much to every conversation you ever saw him be a part of.
Thank you for pulling that up, Darren, and playing that. Great choice. Also, thank you for those of you who are watching and watch every week or listen wherever you watch or listen. We appreciate you. We encourage you to make some picks on CBS Sports. Subscribe to us, follow us, like, comment. That helps us, and we appreciate that so very much. Absolutely. Remember, new episodes drop every Tuesday morning about 6 a.m., but listen, watch at your convenience. And we appreciate any and all interaction. So y'all have a great week. College football is on every night except for Friday. Go to the high school football games. Turn that TV off, and we'll see you next week. Until then, y'all take care.
Have a great week.
Thank you for making the Brew and Shaver Sports Podcast your go-to sports show. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review our show if you haven't already. Your feedback is so important. Let us know what you think about this week's show. Send an email to brewandshavers@gmail.com or a text to our text line 318-390-3599. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you again for listening to the Brew and Shaver Sports Podcast. See you next week.